I mean, I think that the biggest advantage to adopting software, whether it's now or you did it 3 years ago, is accountability. And I've been a huge champion of accountability for years with our work here at CASEpeer. Being able to see what people are doing, seeing that they're productive, seeing activity on your cases, seeing records of client calls and client contact happening, those are all critical.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Answering Legal's Everything Except the Law podcast. I'm your host, Nick Worker. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. So one thing that's become a lot more important for attorneys, obviously, over the past year is equipping your law firm with the right legal tech. We've had a few experts on the podcast so far to talk about this topic, but today we have another really terrific and specific one. I'm actually joined today by Gabriela Cubeiro, who is the CEO and co-founder of the legal software CASEpeer. Gabriela, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about CASEpeer, for those who might not be familiar with you?
Absolutely, Heineck. It's a pleasure to be here. Big fan of Answering Legal and everything you guys do for law firms, and I know we've got some mutual clients out there. So yeah, my name is Gabriela. Hi everyone. I am the CEO and a co-founder of CASEpeer, as Nick said. And the one thing that makes CASEpeer a little bit different from the other technologies out there is that we're specialized for personal injury law. So we really like to look at ourselves as a soup to nut solution from intake to settlement. We have the management screens, the reports, all of the fields our plaintiffs, personal injury law firms are going to need right out of the box. No customization required.
Guilty as charged. I love CASEpeer. I'm very biased. Obviously because I love solutions that actually provide value and are useful in my everyday life. And also for people that don't harass me. Which I'm happy to say that I've not been harassed by CASEpeer just yet. I was just on your guys' website and like trying to do research and I like that you said soup to nuts because it really just encompasses everything that you guys seem to be doing from intake to like invoice. I think I stole that from somebody too, but really there's just everything in there. And I was just reading all about the software. I'm like, wow, this is really all encompassing.
Yeah, it's funny you said invoice because I'll say that's the one thing we don't do. So whoever you stole it from, it's a great line though, but we can't claim it because PI attorneys. That's the one reason that CASEpeer really needed to be made, because so many of the other solutions out there, which are great, the Clios, the My Cases, they are really formed around the billable hour. And plaintiffs' attorneys don't work that way. They risk everything. They put everything on the line and they take a risk on a case to be paid out 4 to 6 months later, sometimes a lot longer than that if it gets litigated. And, we really wanted to make tools that were made for them. And that's often the feedback that we get is like, yes, it doesn't open up on a billing screen, which again, for the attorneys that do that, that's crucial. But for plaintiffs' attorneys, it's just not the thing that's most important for them.
I always get so off topic. I'm literally already off topic. We're like, what, 45 seconds in? But I always end up bringing my wife into this. Hi, Katie. She's like, do I get a shout out in this one? I'm like,
Oh,
yes.
there you go. She's your biggest fan. I love that.
Well, she's all I hang out with. So,
Well, I mean, yes, I hear you. We're all living that life right
yeah.
now.
So I was just talking to her about this. She works for an agency and they don't bill by the hour. So I don't necessarily know why, but they show accountability to their clients through like the hourly tasks of their employees. And she hates it. And so if anybody ever watches this and my wife gets in trouble, I'm sorry. But it's just, especially for somebody like personal injury lawyers, for you to have even taken that in mind, that they're not working by billable hours. A lot of people, and this comes down to like efficiency standpoint, is like, do you want to work by a billable hour or do you want to do a job well done? And
Well,
so,
and we're starting to see this. I mean, it's not my area of expertise, right? But we're seeing a lot of these law firms nowadays that are really pushing back on the billable hour and changing the framework in general for legal services, which is very exciting. I mean, I'm looking at that as a consumer more than more than from the attorney perspective. But for me as a consumer, I would love that, right? Hey, I need you to do XYZ. Tell me how much it costs to set up a will and trust as opposed to billing me by the hour. I love that.
yeah, and that's one of those trends that we've seen, which I'm going to ask you about next. But it's
Mhm.
is law. I feel like law firms are finally catching up to what consumers actually want. So
Yeah.
as a consumer, we don't, and this is even true of any service that you go into. You don't want to like call the plumber and the plumber says, well, I charge $80 an hour or more than that, probably. I can't
Yeah.
remember the last, thank God I don't have to have a plumber come to my house recently. Um, but you're like, oh, okay. And then at the end, it's like, how did you get to 10 grand? You know? And
And it allows you to shop around, right? We're living in a culture where people really want that. And they want to know that they're getting the best deal. That doesn't mean it has to be the best price, right? Like people are equipped and knowledgeable enough to go online, do their research, look at reviews, and feel really good about the service that they're buying and the product that they're buying, which in this case is an attorney's expertise. But it is a trend that I'm really excited to see because the billable hour, I just think it's so archaic. And on some corporate level, I don't think it's ever going away. But it is an exciting proposition to be seeing emerging in the market.
I always say that corporations are like steering a giant cruise ship, and so it's much more difficult to turn the cruise ship. Whereas,
Very true.
yeah, you see the small guys that are able to like get ahead of trends quickly sometimes
Hmm.
like that, which is awesome. But yeah, for corporate, I haven't heard an inkling of them
That's a
getting away from the.
beautiful analogy. I'm gonna have to adopt that. I love that. It's so true. You see
Uh,
those videos now on Instagram with like them trying to park those cruise ships and it just runs aground.
I can barely park my car, so yeah, you're right. Um, I hit a snowbank the other day. I don't want to talk about it.
I thank goodness I live in Southern California. I don't have to deal with that. So
That's right. You don't. Oh my God. I have had a total of like 30 something inches of snow here in the past 2 weeks.
a
So
lot.
my,
You
my
guys have
back
had those
hurts.
big storms. Yeah, I'm sure you've been doing a lot of shoveling, right?
Oh, my back hurts. I'm
Yeah.
sore. So speaking of trends,
Mhm.
obviously you have, I mean, your finger on the pulse of the legal industry in technology. So I'm curious, what have you seen really evolve over the past, I'm gonna say year, um,
Mhm.
but over the past the past year, what are some of the biggest things that have stood out to you?
I mean, it's so interesting because, we've really witnessed in 2020, right, this incredible revolution in the way that we work. And when I say we, I don't even mean just attorneys, but certainly the way CASEpeer works, I'm sure the way you guys work, and just businesses as a whole. And it's interesting because as much as people like to say there's sort of this stereotype that the attorneys don't like change. And to some degree, that might be true, but I think it's really universal. Change is hard, change is painful. And actually, in what I see in my clients, and certainly PI attorneys are always pushing the envelope and looking for creative ways to evolve and do things better. So maybe I'm lucky from that standpoint. But I've been so impressed with how creatively and passionately, like thousands and thousands and thousands of law firms have adapted to this new way of life that we're dealing with right now. It, the one thing I'll say, it's certainly been easier for firms that already had software in place, cloud-based software, right? There's a lot of great options out there. It doesn't have to be CasePeer, but if you already had one in place and, March hit 2020, I mean, it just rocked your world, right? But I think the things that really stand out to me is actually how courts and judges and that infrastructure has adapted, because I do think that those things change slowly. I mean, we're even seeing it with whether it's court data or gosh, dress code for women. I mean, right, a lot of this stuff when it comes to courts and judges is a little archaic. And, the fact that just a few months into the pandemic, one of my clients in Texas was doing a virtual deposition in between client calls from his home office is like pretty amazing. And, I remember him telling me this was a court that was 2 hours away from his client's house and 2 hours away from the opposite direction from his house. And the efficiency that came out of this happening virtually was limitless. And yes, like there's of course the risk that you're going to have a cat show up to your deposition. um, but I mean, let's be honest, we all can use more I am not a cat moments in our lives, right? Like, I mean, I just made my week.
I I thought that was a hoax. So
It was too good. It was too good. I don't
it
know.
I really thought that was like one of those like Onion articles or something like
Yeah.
that. Like lawyer shows up as a cat,
It
can't get the
sounds like
filter
a
off.
headline, right? It does.
So obviously, and for you too, it's a topic of conversation in the workplace, and the VP and I am talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, like what was up with that lawyer who was a cat? He's like, you didn't watch that, and he sends it to me, and the poor lawyer, like, and he was such a good sport about it after the
He's
fact too.
done some interviews. He seems like he's the sweetest man. And listen, like this could happen to any of us, right? I think that's why it was such a hit, is that it is so relatable. And probably 20% of us have turned on Zoom and had the background on from a Zoom party we
Oh
were
yeah,
on the night before. I mean, I tuned into a team meeting after the holidays and I had like a giant Santa Claus in the background. So we've all been there
yep.
and done that. It's so relatable. I mean, that's one thing that's not going to happen again, do it
I thought
once.
he was so cute about it, where he's like, I could do it anyway. I promise
I'm
I'm not a
ready.
cat.
I'm here.
I'm
I know.
here. And I'm glad for him that it didn't have like a voice filter too, so that he didn't
Yes.
like
Oh
sound
gosh.
squeak. I
Yeah.
don't know. That would have made it even worse. But
Um
uh,
totally.
so what was I gonna say? Is oh, this is what I was gonna say. So when you're talking about being able to do a deposition from home, again, you go back to like you can get more work done instead of having like the billable
Yeah.
hour, right? Going back to that.
It's an increase in productivity, absolutely. And I mean, I will say too that I hope some of these things are here to stay, right? I think there's a little bit of that. Well, maybe courts are going to reel this back in, but even I mean, I think about this especially for my clients that often are dealing with injured people, and so the freedom that that potentially gives. Look, some people are going to love doing everything live, right? And I understand that there's to some extent you can't beat it, body language, all that. But the fact that we've been able to allow justice to keep moving forward, even though it's already been affected and hampered, certainly. But the fact that it's able to keep moving forward to some extent, and it's making things easier for clients, for attorneys, hopefully even for judges and things like that, court reporters. It's an exciting evolution.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it's gonna go because I'm
Hmm.
so caught in the middle. Like, I would love to do this podcast from my couch at my house.
Yeah.
Uh, but I really love the workplace. I love having
Yeah.
coworkers. I love being able to talk to people, but also sometimes people exhaust me. So I kind of want it both ways. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to be able to like have my
you
downtime
know
and
I relate to that. So CASEpeer, we went home end of March and we've all been working from home. The team essentially has been working from home, but I've also been paying for rent in a really nice office space. And so I come in every day and I work out of the office and I have it to myself. And it I like having a place that's dedicated to work, but my team loves the flexibility and they're staying productive. Our clients, the law firms, I mean, they're benefiting. They wouldn't know the difference, right? They're getting an extremely high level of service. We're continuing to fire on all cylinders. And I think that the future for us and probably a lot of companies and law firms out there, and I hope we can talk more about that later, but I think it's going to be kind of a hybrid, right? It's going to be, hey, come in, hang out, let's do some meetings, and then let's go back to our workspaces, wherever those may be.
my biggest excitement with all of it is like opening up the talent pool. Is that I'm no
Yeah,
longer just really hiring the best of the best near me. Maybe
yeah,
there's a better candidate from, I don't know, anywhere in in the continental US, or at
absolutely.
least in a close time zone where we can
Yeah,
work during the same hours.
yeah, absolutely. It gives us a lot of freedom. We recognize the same on our end.
So I know that we're talking about adopting legal software, and obviously we're
Hmm.
seeing more and more firms through necessity now
Yeah.
kind of try to get caught up. But what do you think are the biggest, and both sides of this, right? What are the biggest advantages, not advantagers, lawyers will see from adopting legal softwares for their firms now, and how far ahead do you think the firms who had already had them in place were at the start of all of this?
That's a great question. So, I mean, I think that the biggest advantage to adopting software, whether it's now or you did it 3 years ago, is accountability. And I've been a huge champion of accountability for years with our work here at CASEpeer, but it's even more important now that people are working from home. And I have clients that they never went home, or they went home for a week and now they're back. They've been back at the office with safety protocols in place. And then just as many people, they've completely changed the way that they operate and they're all at home. So I've seen the full spectrum happen across our client base. And being able to see what people are doing, seeing that they're productive, seeing activity on your cases, seeing records of client calls and client contact happening, those are all critical. And if you're not seeing that, how do you know that things are not slipping through the cracks? That's the same if you're sitting in an office, but I mean, even a bigger issue if you're not, because you can't get wind of things, right? You can't hear a painful conversation happening down the hall because something slipped through the cracks. And you might, as a manager or as a firm partner, you might not hear about it. And that's not something that a business owner can really allow. In terms of the head start, it's interesting. Look, data is valuable. It, especially the one advantage that firms will have that already had systems like this in place, especially on the accountability side, of course, is to be able to compare. Did things slip? Are we still as productive as we were prior to us changing our process? And that really relates to firms, especially if they were in the office and now they're at home, or they're on a more flexible work schedule.
This is why I was so excited about having you on, even though I didn't know that we would see this much of eye to eye. Is
Mhm.
And this is true, right? This isn't just my sales jargon kicking in, but you never know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
especially if you don't have the proper systems in place to help you keep track of the data, where things
Yeah.
came from, if they're performing well for you, you can't really make, I'm going to say, educated decisions, but you can't really
Yeah.
make good decisions for your
Yeah.
business, whatever you do. Um, and that's one of the things that we talk about here, right? So a lot of the lawyers that I deal with are small firms, and
Mhm.
a lot of the times it's solo practitioners, and they work right off their cell phone,
Yeah.
and they try to use Google Voice and free solutions and answer the phone themselves. And I commend you, the entrepreneurial spirit. You're out there, you're
Mhm.
doing it yourself, you're making it happen. um, but that comes with what we're talking about
Mhm.
is I'm going to call it accountability, because you're right, it really is accountability, but it comes down to, you don't know what you don't know, right? And we tell
And
people, go ahead.
oh, I was also just going to say, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but you can't scale that, right? It's not reproducible. And attorneys love to think they can hold everything in their heads, and they can hold an incredible amount of stuff in their head. But at the moment that you want to grow or bring someone on, or take a vacation or tune out for a day, the wheels fall off of the bus. And that's where services like yours come into place for sure.
Yeah. So that's a whole separate wormhole.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
on letting go and trying to go on vacation. How are you going to go on vacation?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what we tell people is like, and this is true. I don't know the exact data on it. We've done studies on this. We had data, and it seems to get only worse, not better, as time goes on. But you ever tried to like call your friend and it goes straight to voicemail, and then you call them back like 5 minutes later and they answer it, and you're like, hey, was your phone off? Or I tried to get you before. And they're like, oh, no,
You
I didn't see your
ghosting
call come
me?
in.
What's going on?
Yeah. And my sister, so I knew that this was true. I have a little sister. She's away at college, and I like to call her and leave her messages and stuff. But sometimes I want you to answer the phone if I'm calling you. And she had this weird issue with her phone where every single time that you called her the first time, it would go straight to voicemail. And you had to know that like you got to hang up on Patricia and you got to call her back. And then it rings and she answers it. And we tell these guys, you don't even know that the call just went directly to your voicemail because of whatever's going on in the network. You can't predict that. And so if you don't have a system in place to, and that's what voicemail really is call forwarding. So if you have our system in place, which conditional call forwarding will allow the call to continue and not just end up at your voicemail. So you think maybe you're paranoid. Maybe you think I'm stealing your calls from you, but that's not what I'm doing. It's really a fail safe. And if you don't, first of all, if you never try us out, you're never going to believe that because it's just going to go straight to it and you're going to say whatever. But people are astounded when they join. They're like, yeah, I got 2 calls in the 2 weeks that I was with you that I didn't see come in at all. And they didn't enter I looked at my phone analytics in my off. I don't know where they came from. How did you get this person? Are you stealing? Like, seriously, are you stealing from me?
Did you accidentally give me someone else's lead?
And we're like, no, you know how much trouble we would get in if we did that?
No, I believe it. And on that front, that's really also where the case management software comes in, right? Because what we see, for example, there's I know like some lead gen companies, and they'll only work with people who have case management software in place. Because what happens on their end is that they say, gosh, you sent me all these bad leads. And they say, did you ever call those leads? Or did you call them twice? Or did you have any kind of follow-up? And so, I mean, I've talked to a couple people that do that, and they just say, I don't work with people anymore that aren't tracking them in a software, because the reality is that people are very busy, especially attorneys. And you might be in a meeting for 3 hours or in a deposition for a whole day. And things slip through the cracks if you don't have the system in place to track, and especially in the PI space again. And it's the same across the board, I'm sure, but PI is a very competitive market. I mean, if you're playing in the Google AdWords world, you're paying 200, I mean, at least in California, which I know is a very competitive market, but you're paying $250 a click. So let's imagine that you pay $1,000 per qualified lead, and you let that lead slip through the cracks with bad follow-up. That's crazy. Why would you do that?
I get like pains in my chest when I think about it. And
it is. I mean, and it is. And it's good to present it to people that way. And a lot of them think about it that way. They want to put everything in place. But for the people that aren't, it's just about taking that first step.
So perfect, right? Let's talk about first steps, because I'm the same way. It's so hard to get started on something, and it's like, I've been doing it this way, and I don't know, I don't trust this CASEpeer thing. Are they going to get access to my file? How does this work? I'm old. I don't want to figure it out. All these things that we tell ourselves are why we can't do it, right? So I like to have people like you on and tell people how easy it is. So tell me like, what's the best starting place, right? And in your expertise too, what's the best starting place? How easy is it? And how can I do it even if I think that I can't?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to adopting technology, certainly looking at case management software goes without saying, right? it's, as we were saying kind of earlier, without it, it's impossible to scale. And at the end of the day, lawyers, attorneys, you guys are there for the lawyering. But at the heart of it, your business is a service business, and technology can help you provide better service for your clients. So not only does that mean more referrals, it means growth. It means you just going home every day knowing that you did a job well done and that your staff did as well. But at the very least, if you have 10 cases and you feel like you can track those in Google Sheet or Excel sheet, there's two things that I always tell people. And again, this is for people, look, if CASEpeer is not a good fit for you, okay, but here's the two technologies you need to adopt. First of all, if you're using a 2007 version of Microsoft Word or a 2000 version of Microsoft Word, which I also have seen, unfortunately, far too regularly, it's time for an upgrade. I know people don't like change, especially when it comes to technology that they sit in all day long, right? All of a sudden, all the buttons are in a new place. And I mean, I recently upgraded to Office 365, so I relate. It's a change, but it was time. And those fundamentals power your business, right? So you're leaving functionality on the table, productivity, and at times security. So updating your suite of probably you're up to Office 365. That's really what we should be seeing. And especially if you're using different softwares, it also opens up really exciting integration opportunities that you don't have with a desktop version. So, and the other thing that I think is really important in this day and age, and this is more in your wheelhouse, but it's e-signature functionality. Right. And again, if you're using case management software, it's coming, probably it's integrated or something like that. So that's great. But again, at the very least, look, you're getting the calls. You need an easy way to sign them. And clients aren't coming in person as much as they used to. Right. So whether it's Adobe, a HelloSign or DocuSign or something integrated in a legal software, you need to make it as easy as possible for a client to sign up. So those are the two technologies that I just think law firms can't do anything without. Of course, layering in, making sure every call gets answered, making sure every lead is tracked. I mean, everything's important, but those are some two core fundamentals.
So that's, to me, I don't even think to tell people, and this is really like educational for me, is I don't think to even tell lawyers like, oh, you should get like an e-signature platform.
Mm-hmm.
And now I kind of have to reevaluate what I'm thinking about, because you need that. If you don't have
that,
if you don't have
especially
that,
today.
if you don't have that right now, how are you doing? I want to know. I want to know
think
how
the
you're doing.
reason you don't think about it is that it's so ubiquitous, but many law firms don't have it in place. And I don't know. I mean, I have a printer at home. I use it as a shelf next to my desk. It's got a bunch of things on it, some paperwork I still haven't scanned and stuff like that. I mean, most people these days don't even have a printer. They want to be able to, some people don't even have, they want to be able to sign it on their, with their finger through the DocuSign on their phone and send it off to you.
I'm so similar. I have a document right there from my my accountant. I'm filing my taxes.
You're ahead of the game. Good for you.
Oh, I can't wait. I used to be a big procrastinator in my life, and I'm just going to say it didn't go very well. And so I'm like, as soon as I get things now, they get sent. Like,
I love that.
They don't even give me the documents for most of my stuff yet. And she already has it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I hate is, and this is a personal thing, I hate, like scanning documents myself and sending them back to you. So
yeah,
she sent me this letter. It's like an engagement letter. I have to sign it. I forget what I'm agreeing to. I'm agreeing to something, with like her filing on my behalf without seeing her or something like that. And she needs my signature. And I'm thinking she's going to send it to me in, like a DocuSign. And I had to she mailed it to me, and I had to sign it and scan it and send it
And
back.
you know what? These technologies, again, they're either integrated in your software. Usually those are add-ons. I know they are in CASEpeer, but they have a lot of convenience. But even if you're just starting out, I mean, those, if you're not sending a ton of contracts out, they're inexpensive. And it's people are coming to expect that level of service. So it's also the difference, especially again, if you're in a competitive space like PI attorneys are, they might be talking to a couple firms, right? And if that one firm makes it easier for them to sign with them, they're going to go with that firm.
I think we get caught up in we don't want to change and we don't want to offer new things, especially, and I see this all the time with lawyers, is because the practice of law very rarely changes. It's a lot of
Mhm.
the same procedures, and
It's
to
true.
and so why would I change my business on something that, like, I'm not changing what I'm doing for it, And
Yeah.
that's that trap that we fall into. And
Yeah, and that's an interesting angle. I think you're right that that could be where maybe again when we kind of talked about that earlier, that stereotype that attorneys don't like change. And um, again, I don't know that that's necessarily fully true, but your point on the fact that the nature of law doesn't or evolves very slowly, that could have some effect on that. I mean, a perfect example though, not just with answering systems, but it's even texting, right? Consumers now want to text with you. I don't have time to take a call. No one on my team is, if you call them on their phone, no one's answering the call. They're going to see who's leaving them a voicemail. So if you're an attorney or a paralegal or an assistant trying to reach a client, um, you probably want to shoot them a text because no matter where they are, they're going to see and likely respond to that text. And I know that when we released that feature, that was a really big deal. I mean, firms got a hold of clients that had gone silent on them for months, in some cases years, and all of a sudden they got a hold of them because all they did was shoot them a text. Hey, come check in. I got money for you. And they left that voicemail 100 times, but they texted it, and finally someone actually got the message.
And it used to be, and this is another cool evolution, is I remember when I first started, and I started in sales too. So
Mm-hmm.
if I were to have texted, and this happened to me, if I were to text one of my customers, that was
Mm-hmm.
like a big faux pas. You could
Oh,
don't text me.
totally.
That's too much of a
Too
personal
personal.
thing.
Yeah. But
And then,
now,
like you, so I got set up with a company where I took the company phone number, and now I text
mm-hmm.
back and forth with our customers for support
Mm-hmm.
and potential clients. And I do get some funny ones. One of these days I'll do a podcast on all the funny inquiries I've gotten,
Mm-hmm.
obviously anonymously. Um, but now, so I was getting pitched by this company, right? They're telling me I
Mm-hmm.
can use their platform, put it on my website, integrate. And they're like, yeah, people want to text. We have case studies of people that just sent out a text message to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, 100 of their delinquent billers and got like 5,000% of what they had
Mm-hmm.
written off back just because they sent
Yeah.
an invoice through a text, because people just want that. So
Yeah.
it's another one of those examples of how you have to stay up to date on what consumers want. So back in the day,
Yeah.
if consumers say don't text me, you better not text them. Now if
Mm-hmm.
consumers say text me, I'm busy, you better text them.
Yes.
So it's
100%.
so
Yeah.
I want to talk about, and for me, this hits close to home because obviously
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of not as specialized as you, but I'm specialized.
Mm-hmm.
So when lawyers are looking for solutions that they can
Mm-hmm.
use, because technically, if you think about it, lawyers could just use Salesforce. That's a good cloud-based software that they could put their stuff in. But why? What would lawyers be wise to look for when trying to find a software for their firm, and what are some of the biggest uh, things or benefits that they get from using someone specialized?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, typically when I'm talking to an attorney, the very first thing I'll advise them is to evaluate their needs and then their wants. And asking them to differentiate between those and write them down can be really helpful because a lot of times people are coming to the table focused just on their wants. And actually, we Salesforce tends to be really expensive, so I don't see a ton of attorneys coming off of it, but we do see it from time to time where, it seems like the obvious thing, or they start using Jira, which is, an agile really for developers program. I mean, we've seen it all. People come off of all kinds of products that are not made for law or even really case management or any kind of management software. And a lot of times I think they go there for the want, right? Salesforce, you can do anything with it. I mean, you can practically go to space, right? Everything plugs into it and it's got all these bells and whistles. It takes a lot of time and it's very expensive. And so I think it's really important for law firms or for any business to take a look at something and find something that meets all of your needs and most or some of your wants. And the other piece of advice I have, and this is where a specialized product, if it's out there for your practice area, is hugely beneficial, is thinking about onboarding. In my experience, most law firms don't want to spend a lot of time customizing their product. And for those of you, attorneys I'm speaking to, for those of you that think you do, you don't have the time. A lot of attorneys come to it with the best intentions, but you're already running a business. And if you're starting your business, even more so, you don't have time. So if you are a PI attorney, for example, and if you're not, or, if you don't practice, injury claims or things like that, CASEpeer will tell you, look, we may not be the best fit for you. But if you are a PI attorney, you come to CASEpeer and it's out of the box. You turn it on, you've got all the reporting you need, the management screens you need. It already has all the case statuses you need, all the policy limits, everything's there. Versus if you go to a more general product, maybe, it has this want over here that's exciting, but you've got all of these fundamentals that you need to put in place. I mean, that's a huge impact on your productivity. And I'll be honest, we will eventually sign you up, I promise, because we see a lot of that. Firms go with something, they think they're going to build it in, or their friend was using it that does family law, and it's a great product for them. But again, if you do PI, there's a reason that we are really the software of choice for attorneys, and it's because it's so easy to get started and easy to learn.
That's one of those traps that I fall into.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I used to be in sales here. I used to talk to attorneys, and my job was to try and get them to do a free trial. I never got, I don't deal with payments. Try the free trial. If you don't like me, you didn't sign nothing. You didn't give me a credit card. I'm the smooth talking guy on the phone. And I used to not see much success. Well, the prospect of like customization is really enticing. And so you tell somebody, I can do anything. I'm specialized for law firms. I know all the jargon, and you have a specialized intake. Like, I could do it. I'll do your specialized intake. You can create your questions. You can customize this. You can customize that. But nobody wants to actually set that up. So what I would tell people,
it's a lot of work,
especially for personal injury, I would tell them, I have templated scripts that I can use, and you can tweak the scripts as time goes on. But let me just give you the standard one, which is what's the date of the accident, where did it occur, what were the injuries sustained. I don't even remember off the top of my head.
At the end of the day, but all those things you mentioned, that is really what you need to know.
That's all you need. And so,
that's all they're asking.
You fall into the trap of, I want to build this specifically for me, and I want it to do what I want it to do. But if you want to get started with something like that, the implementation, and this is serious, I really truly mean this, because I've tried to do this company wide for a pretty decent sized organization, is 6 months to a year and a half. The implementation is a nightmare. So when you get things out of the box and you can hit the ground running and instantly start seeing the results and that ROI that you want, it's just way better.
In 3 years, you're going to be further ahead than if you'd invested that time customizing. 100%. And I mean, and we're not even talking about the quality of data, right? Because I will say, since we're talking about customization, if you go in there and you try to build CASEpeer in a generic software, your data is never going to be as powerful as it is in a system that from the ground up is intentionally designed with those pieces working together the way that they should. And, quality data is king. I mean, we talked about that earlier. It really is a difference between making okay decisions and making smart decisions. And the other thing I'll say too, when it comes to the benefits of a specialized product like ours, it's a blueprint. So my favorite thing, I tell this story from time to time, but an attorney once, said in one of our Facebook communities, CASEpeer helps me be a better personal injury attorney every day. Like, it teaches me things about my practice area. And that's absolutely the truth. If you're someone who wants to get into PI and you graduated law school, sign up for CASEpeer, because we're going to tell you all the fields that are important and all the stages your case should go through and all the people, or at least the responsibilities that everyone should have on a case. It's all in there versus you starting from scratch. And that's a really powerful asset. And I will also add to that is that if you are a new attorney, this year CASEpeer is running a promotion. So for anyone that's passed the bar in the last 2 years, you'll get CASEpeer for free for your first 12 months. We know it's a tough job market. A lot of PI attorneys aren't hiring new attorneys. So if you do want to get into that practice area, reach out to our team.
I love that. That's probably one of the most amazing offers I've ever heard. So if you're not taking advantage of that, and if you were scared to get started as a personal injury attorney by yourself,
give it
you
a
have
whirl.
Yeah.
And I promise we'll teach you along the way. You don't have anything to lose.
So I have another weird story, and maybe this won't make the video. We'll see. But so when I first got started in marketing, I was a little green, but I'm a smart guy. I can figure things out, and I was doing really well. I was seeing some success in SEO, and my main specialty is lead gen. I build websites that just capture leads, which is an art in and of itself. And I went to this conference of this amazing company whom I am not going to name. I'm very sorry, but they put on this great conference, and I used their software for about 2 years, and they taught me so much stuff. So I know, I know the value of just partnering with a software, because it's not just like a screen. There's onboarding, there's support, and they taught me so much stuff that I still use today, still relevant. But we're at their conference, and they have this guy speaking, and I follow this guy on Twitter still. His name is what's his last name? Will Reynolds. He is the founder and CEO of CASEpeer Interactive. He is incredible. He's insane. He's an insane, crazy, awesome human being. And he's giving this lecture, and I've heard him speak prior, and I see him on YouTube, and he's great. He's also a great speaker, which is what makes him so great. And he's explaining how he built this report that he uses personally. And what he did was categorize millions of keywords, and he built it custom. He did it by himself. He had the time, and he built this crazy thing, and he was showing us, the ramifications of what it did. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, because he built it in Google Data Studio, which is the most bare bones thing. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to replicate this. I'm going to do it. But I am never, ever, 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 ever going to do that.
Yeah.
I need something that's built for my needs. And so we get caught in this trap of I'm an expert. I need this. I need that. It's no, you can use, normal processes that will help you succeed. Slow down, you don't have to, bang your head against the wall to get results. And I want to give you a spotlight. I want to give you a chance to strut your stuff, proverbially. Proverbially? Yeah. So can you tell me what you think CASEpeer does the best out of everybody? Because I would tend to agree with you. And also what your users love the most and appreciate the most about CASEpeer?
The best thing that we do is provide that out of the box infrastructure from beginning to end. We really take the guesswork out of it. And we've really thought about the management of your cases and your people. That's another thing that a lot of technologies forget about, right? They think, okay, here I am, I'm helping you manage this case. But what about those individuals and their performance? How often are they touching their cases? How are they at filling in information? Because if you have the expectation that your firm is operating off of software, you need to make sure that information's getting put into that software. And how do you bonus and reward people for good work? Or if you need to make hard choices, which a lot of firms had to make last year, how do you know you're making the right choices for your business? And that is something that CASEpeer has been really intentional about, in addition to making sure, of course, that your client care is as good as it possibly can be using our service. And I would love to say that that's what CASEpeer users appreciate the most. I think that they appreciate two things. One is the ease of use. I have many clients come to us and say, especially ones that were using a legacy software, it used to take 6 months to train someone on how to do their job. You have them coming into an assistant role. And I know you talk to a lot of PI attorneys. I mean, in growing firms, people are sometimes lucky to stick around for 6 months. There's turnover. The assistant jobs at PI firms, it's hard work. And you're dealing with people on their worst days every day that are injured. It's not for everyone. 6 months is a long time to get someone up to speed, only to lose them during that time or soon after that time. And in CASEpeer, people tell us it takes them 2 to 3 days. And they're cruising around, adding information. And honestly, if we make it a more pleasant experience for them to do their job, they might stick around longer too and reduce your turnover, which is great for business and great for the long-term success of your business. But I will say the other thing, it's not about our technology at all. We have an amazing support team. So, I mean, we really believe that it's our functionality to, yes, be as intuitive as possible. We have clients that have never called us, but if you need help or if you want to unlock more functionality from CASEpeer, you can. You can call us, you can chat us, or you never have to talk to us and just look at our help resources, watch a webinar now and then. We do it all. But that's really important because, as you said, look, there's people that buy software and then they don't use it. We don't want to be that software. We really want to be the backbone of your law firm. And the difference is really our people and how much we value the success of our clients.
That's like the guy is a rough and tough guy, and I forget who it is, but he's like, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you, what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
And to me, the same can be said. Like, show me your support team and what you can do for your customers when they have a problem, and I'll tell you how successful your business is. So
I think that's very true. And I know that that's something that we've talked about in past conversations just about our mutual clients. And I know that that's something that Answering Legal prioritizes as well. And it really is incredibly important. And a lot of tech companies, especially when they're on the way up, I mean, we've seen it, again, it happens in legal tech, it happens in other industries across the board. But if you don't prioritize that, you're going to have people out there, saying bad things about your product when really you have a decent product, but they aren't able to use it well, or they're turned off by the way that you look after them.
I would love to say that like my support team has won awards. I should make them an award and I should give it to them. But there have been times, and I am not a jealous person. I'm really not. I love what I do. I love my life. Everything is great. But no one has ever sent me flowers or chocolate or pizza
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
we have customers, and kudos to these guys, because I should do this for companies too. I got to find out where you are. And like, if you do a really good job, I should send you a pizza, because that's what I would
Yeah.
want. I want a pizza, especially I'm from New
Yeah.
York. I like pizza,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I walk past there. I'm like, where'd you guys get all this pizza? They're like, oh, so-and-so sent it to us because we,
I love
edited
that.
all these lines. And I'm like, I'm really glad, A, that I work in a place where they actually do a good job, the support people,
Hmm.
the support staff, but B, that they're recognized for it.
Yeah.
You also want to see that inside of your organization.
I will say that that means that as an organization, you guys are doing something right to give your team the autonomy to go above and beyond for the client. Because sometimes where I see this fall apart is when companies lay too, um, put too much structure in place and make it hard for your, I mean, we call them our client success team for a reason, but more broadly, your support team. If you tie their hands behind their back, you're going to make their job really difficult. And they're on the ground speaking with someone, chatting with someone, emailing back and forth with someone. They need to have the autonomy to solve their problem if at all possible.
This is the last thing I'll say about this, and I don't know who I'm going to offend when I say this, but speaking of that, and I love that you mentioned this too, because you can always tell when you're talking to somebody in support with some problem that you're having, and they're not going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
So having autonomy is such a huge thing. And I learned this from the company that I mentioned before is
Hmm.
when I signed up with them, they actually introduced me to the people who man the live chat during business hours. So I was like,
Really?
oh, like if
Okay.
I have a problem, I'm going to live chat you. They're like, yep, I'm
Mm,
here. I got my laptop. Like, that's what I do all
that's
day is I'm just
cool.
the live chat guy. So I ended up
Hmm.
doing that. I'm the live chat
Hmm.
guy. I have a couple of other
Hmm.
people now, but we
Hmm.
used to be a lot smaller. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's not that it makes me mad, it's that there's such an opportunity here, is uh like the rate this chat, and you can tell that like the agents are working towards getting the better rating on the chat. And it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
did you get a stern face or a semi happy face or a stars in your eyes, and then you leave a little and it's like,
Yeah.
yes, I know I want to reward people who get the good ones, but
Hmm.
also to me, that hanging that over somebody's head, especially in
Yeah.
support, is one of those things. I'm sure we could talk about this forever.
I know. The one thing I just, sorry,
Go
we
ahead.
could
No, no,
go
no, no.
on
I
all
don't want to
day,
cut
but
you
the
off
one
ever.
thing I want to add to that too is I think about, when I go places with with the company, which I mean, gosh, I can't wait to be on the road again and just shaking people's hands. I mean, I'll sanitize after, but I
Yeah.
just really want to shake someone's hand again. But um, my client success people, if they're there, they're like a celebrity. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you're lit. Oh, thank you so much." I mean, it's like a mob just descends upon them because they're so appreciated. And to the point they were making earlier, you see that with your team too, and that's really cool stuff.
Yeah. They're also like celebrity. Like, I don't think if I went to a conference that anybody would know who I am. They'd be like, you're
Yeah.
the guy who sends me the newsletter. I hate you. You're annoying.
You show up in my inbox every week.
Yeah, I
Curse
see your
you.
stupid mustached face and the little icon in my Gmail.
Love it.
But yeah, if your support team is celebrities like that, you're doing something right. And
Yeah.
obviously we picked you to be here, so we believe in you. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm also
Thank you.
curious. I want some breaking news. If you got the scoop
Mm.
for me, is there anything new with CASEpeer that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so we do have a very full roadmap for the next couple of years. We like to look ahead and plan accordingly. We typically do not share any specific details, but what I can say for 2021, we're really focused on improving the client experience from the ground up. So yes, that's going to include some new integrations, as well as upgrades to our existing infrastructure. Our clients spend all day in CASEpeer, and some of them spend a lot of their nights in CASEpeer too, depending on where you are in the startup world with your law firm. We want to make sure that we're always enhancing that experience and not only increasing productivity, but the pleasure of using the product. So that's one of our missions for 2021. And if we tune in here at end of the year, we'll let you know how it went.
I'll have to have you back on and then be like,
Yeah.
they wouldn't tell me what it was, but here it is, you know? But Gabby, I want to thank you so much for being on this episode. I had so much fun. I wasn't that nervous. I'm not sweating underneath my flannel. And for anybody watching, so this is my daily scoop. There is going to be a ton of links below. There's going to be a link to CASEpeer, and whatever Gabriela sends me after this interview is going to be down there too. The offer for personal injury lawyers just getting started out will be down there. And yeah, is there anything else you want to add, or do we?
No, that's all. Thank you so much for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure. We're huge fans of what Answering Legal is up to.
Likewise.
Again, your dedication to your clients and to helping attorneys have a thriving business. I love that. We're coming at it from definitely the same perspective here.
Yeah, last thing I'll say is when I met you 6 months ago, I remember being on the call with Joe and being like, okay, these people see eye to eye with us. We're actually gonna talk to them. It'll be a
I
good
love
fit.
it. It will. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick.
Thank you.